Well, a big hello to Central Elementary in Virginia, Henry B. Birkland in Massachusetts, and Mount Horeb in New Jersey. A huge welcome to all you guys and your schools and your teachers. It's very exciting to have you on a live safari. My name is Brent Leo Smith. I have my good friend Wim, whose nickname is the Wildebeest, and that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at a herd of blue wildebeest, and it is a very windy weather today, which makes a lot of the animals a little bit nervous, because animals like lions and leopards might be able to sneak up on them without them hearing them coming. So the wildebeest are grazers, which means they eat grass. Oh, Mackenzie would like to know how many animals are there in the reserve. Mackenzie, a lot. There's probably a couple of thousand wildebeest. There's about over 100 lions, probably close on 100 leopard, about 50 or 60 wild dogs, 10,000+ impala and inyala. So lots and lots of animals. And you must remember that there's no fence between us and the other reserves. So these animals have 8 million acres that they can disappear into. So even though we only stay in a small area, the animals can go wherever they want. Now I'm going to look for my favorite animal today, and it is called the African wild dog. And they will eat baby wildebeest, and Alan, a baby wildebeest is called a wildebeest calf. So it's a calf. A big male wildebeest is called a wildebeest bull, and a female is called a wildebeest cow. Okay, should we go see what we can find? I saw some wild dogs earlier today at around lunchtime down in the south of the reserve, so I'm going to hopefully try and catch up with them, but they move very quickly, so they can be quite difficult to find. So hopefully we've got some luck. Now, of course, I'm not the only one taking you guys on a safari. We've got two other people out there, and we're going to introduce you now to James, who's walking through the African bush.
It's very windy out here today, kids. Very difficult to stay upright. If I don't lean forward, I get blown backwards. Now, this is very unusual weather for this part of the world. My name is James, and on camera today is Sebastian. He is from another African country called Gabon, which is a long way from here. We're also accompanied, of course, by a fellow called David, who's from Kenya. So you're accompanied by 3 different kinds of African here today, which is very exciting. In fact, 4. Also, we have Rexon, who is like me from South Africa. Now, if you have any questions, you must please remember to ask anything at all you like. I will do my best to answer your questions. You ask your teacher, and she will ask me. And I believe that some of you are doing library class today. I'm not sure how we're going to help with your understanding of books, but we will definitely do our best to help your understanding of the wilderness. Matthew, I'm afraid because of this wind, I missed your question. Let's have it again. Now, Matthew, you're obviously somebody who has got a good handle on geography, either that or your teacher has, and you say, how remote is this area from most other areas or from other areas in southern Africa? Well, the nearest town, that's the best way to describe it, the nearest town is about an hour and 20 minutes drive away, the nearest big town, but the nearest village, tiny little village called Dixie Village, is not too far from here. It's probably only about, say, 5 miles from where we're sitting now, so that's not too far. So I suppose that's the best way to describe how remote we are. But if we point that way, which is to the east, you won't find a village for a good 100 kilometers or so, which is about 60 miles, possibly even more than that. And that way, the nearest big town is probably more than 300 or 400 kilometers away, about 250 miles as the crow flies. No crow is going to be flying in this weather, I'll tell you that for free. It is very, very windy. And so, because it's so windy, we on foot are going to walk around here in or in the open areas. We're not going to go into the thick bush where we can't hear what's going on. Let's go across now to a bird, probably holding on very tightly to its branch.
Hello everybody and welcome aboard the Sunset Safari. We're looking here at a little fork-tailed drongo birdie, and well, you're watching Safari Live, and my name is Ralph Kirsten, and on the camera we have Davy. Now please don't forget little kiddies from the Central Elementary, Henry B and Mount Horeb schools. Please send your questions through your teacher and ask us all your little questions and your comments, because we'd love for you to join us out here in the African bush in the greater Kruger National Park in South Africa. Now, I know if I speak a little bit strangely to you, it's because I'm South African, and here in South Africa we do speak English, not American, and I know that my little boy, his name is Kai, he's also 6 years old, and he says that you Americans talk strangely, but I think that we talk a little bit strangely, don't we? But anyway, nonetheless, we're going to be going and looking for all sorts of animals this afternoon. I think I'm going to try and find some leopards, but it's very windy, and I'm sure the other guides have told you that it's also quite cool now, but it's a very good time for us to find those animals that like to eat other animals, like leopard and lions. So let's go look for them, why don't we? And as we drive along, you can see the grass and the trees moving in the wind. Now, Parker and Neva, you have to have more predators or carnivores than you do have herbivores, because they eat the herbivores. So remember, it's like a triangle. I'm just going to stop so I can show you. It's a triangle. Right up at the top is the predators, and as you go down the triangle, it gets more and more animals right down to the bottom of the triangle, because there needs to be the most animals at the bottom. And at the bottom we also talk about the grass and the trees and all of that. So at the bottom, lots of trees, lots of grass. What eats grass and trees? The herbivores. What eats herbivores? The carnivores, like the leopards and lions that we're looking for. So let's go on and look for some of them. And when we're looking for them, we sometimes look on the road for the little tracks and all sorts of things like that. And somebody that's very good with tracks and out on foot is James. Let's go see what he's been able to find.
We're just now sitting, I think, with the very same animals that you saw first. They are wildebeest or gnu's, and you saw them with Brent earlier. And you know, normally, if they heard me talking this loudly near where they are, and they looked up and saw us walking on foot, they'd run away. But because the wind is blowing so hard, I don't think that they can hear my voice. And so they haven't looked up, which means they haven't seen us. Now, what's interesting about that, of course, is that it means it's much easier for predators to catch them on a windy day like this. I'm afraid I missed the name in the wind. Is it Adelaide? Advik. Advik. That's an interesting name. Advik, you're wondering how you tell the difference between a male and a female wildebeest? Well, let's try and sneak a bit closer and I'll show you. The males are larger than the females in general, but it's difficult to tell at this distance. Then the only other way to do it, I'm afraid, is to look at the private parts. And in a female you can see behind the tail, and on a male you can also see behind the tail or under the belly. Now let's see if they spot us. Now, we're not very close to these animals. We're probably about 100 meters away, which is about 100 yards or 300 feet. And Carrington, we can get this close because they see us as a predator. They do not see us as something that they want to eat. Obviously, these are grazers. But also, because they see us as a predator, their first reaction is to move away from us, not to come towards us. And even if there were lions there, they would probably move away. An animal only becomes dangerous when it is cornered, and that means when it cannot move away, and when it feels like you are threatening it and it cannot run from you. Then they will come towards you, and then it becomes a lot more dangerous. But in this instance, if we look at these wildebeest and the impala around them, you can see there's plenty of space for them to go lots of areas, and so all they will do if they become afraid of us is move away. They will increase the distance between us and them. I also look a lot closer than I am because of the angle that the camera is at. Aiden? Wildebeest do not lay eggs. No, Aiden. Wildebeest are mammals, which means they give birth to live young. Okay, so like you're a mammal, and a cat and a dog is a mammal, and a cow is a mammal, so a wildebeest is a mammal, and that means that they give birth to live young, in the same way that you were never an egg. Well, I suppose half of you was an egg, but you don't need to worry about that, but you weren't born as an egg. So is the same for wildebeest. The animals that lay eggs, or the big animals that lay eggs, would be fish. They lay eggs most of the time. Reptiles, like snakes and lizards, they lay eggs most of the time. Birds lay eggs, of course, like chickens, and you eat chicken eggs sometimes. And frogs and toads and salamanders, they will also lay eggs. Also, insects and arachnids like ticks and spiders, they also lay eggs. But mammals, and this is one of the very special things about mammals, like us and like these wildebeest and the impala, is that we give birth to live young. That's one of the main features of being a mammal. I believe that Ralph has got another bird gripping onto a branch, trying not to fly off.
Yes, and these little creatures, they lay eggs, don't they? Little birds. And these ones are like your cockatiels that maybe some of you have as pets. But these are very wild and free, and these are called grey go-away birds. Why are they called that? Because their call is like, go away, go away, go away. So hopefully we'll hear them call, but for the minute they're just jumping around this very thorny tree. And they've got very thick bills on them, and that means that they eat fruit. And what they're doing is they're jumping around this tree, trying to hang on in the wind, and they're looking for the little fruits that are available on the tree now. So if we get lucky, we might see them actually eating the little fruits. There was one eating it just now. Dylan, these little animals and all the other animals around here, they need to go and get their own water from the little pans and ponds that are around here in the game reserve. So there's always water somewhere, but they need to know where to get it. And a lot of them can smell the water, and they've got very good sense of smell, and that means that they are able to sniff the air and they can smell where the water is, and then they walk in that direction and they find the water. If you're a bird, you can see the water from up in the sky. Now, there's a bird that is like Zazu from the Lion King. That is a hornbill, but it's a red-billed hornbill. Zazu was a yellow-billed hornbill, so he's just a little bit different. And what is he going for? Oh, there's a little insect he's going for. There's a little bug. Is he going to eat it? Those hornbills like to eat insects. They can eat insects and fruit and seeds and all sorts, but it looks like he's spotted a yellow and black beetle. And I wonder if he wants to eat it. It looks like a bit of a stink bug. I don't think it's going to taste very nice. Now, Kellen, the most poisonous plants out here are the ones that are like cactus. And they've got a white liquid inside that can burn your eyes, and if you've got a little cut and you get some of that liquid on it, it's also going to burn very much. And there's also some trees that if you pull a leaf off of that tree, it's got a milky latex on the inside. And if you make a fire with that wood and you cook your meat on it or anything on top of that, it's going to give you a runny tummy. So those are the most poisonous plants that we have. But the most poisonous animals are the little insects and things like these birds are trying to eat up here. So they need to be careful. They can't just eat any insect that they find. They need to watch out because some of them are poisonous too. And when we think of scorpions and snakes, they aren't poisonous, are they? They are venomous because they inject the venom inside you. So a scorpion and a snake is venomous, and a tree and an insect are poisonous. So that's very interesting to remember. Remember that, kiddies. Now, I think these birds have really struggled to hold on to that tree. I think some of them have actually flown off. Oh no, there is one or two there still. Abigail, the grey go-away bird, he will put his head down into the water, but he'll only put his bill in the water and suck up some water and then put his head back like a duck does and swallow the water down, but he doesn't put his whole head in the water. There is a very special bird that goes to the water called a sand grouse, and he soaks his feathers in the water and then flies back to the nest. And the little babies that are in the nest, they will drink the water from the daddy's feathers. Very special, isn't it? But these little birds, I think they're just trying to stay inside this tree and not get blown away. Okay, everyone. Ooh. What's he doing now? I think he's still just trying to stay on the branch in the wind. Okay, I think we're going to carry on and look for some lions and leopards. And I know someone who's also looking for something very exciting, and that's Brent. Let's go over to him.
Well, I can't find any sign of the dogs just yet. They were around this area. So it's been quite cool today. So they might have kept moving, so I'm going to keep slowly moving towards the east, and if we don't find any dogs, maybe we can do something else like elephants or hippos. Now, Angelina and Ethan, I'm not sure where you are in the States. Are you in Massachusetts? Oh, in Virginia. Well, you'd have to get to Atlanta first, and then I think from Atlanta, it's a 13 or 14 hour direct flight from Atlanta to Johannesburg. And then once you land in Johannesburg, then you would have to fly for another hour and a little bit to get from Johannesburg to where we are. So a long time, in other words. Oh, another excellent question from Madeline and Maxwell. How far are we from the equator in the reserve? We are quite far, probably just, shall I work it out? Probably around 1,000 miles or so. Maybe a little bit more. I'll have to double check, but somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 miles from the equator. Guys, give me tough questions. I like it. I like it. Good questions. Sophia, yes. Quite a lot of the other animals will live in other parts of Africa as well. Lions, leopards, cheetah, wild dog, impala, kudu. But then we've got some animals that only live in a very small area, like the Nyala, only live in South Africa and Mozambique, which is next door to us. And so it depends. Certain animals, yes, occur over lots of different places. Other animals occur only within quite a small area. Let's have a look now. This is where I think the wild dogs could have gone. There's a water hole up ahead, so they might have gone for a drink. Very windy. I nearly lost my hat there. Phelan, how we spot animals when they're so camouflaged is we use our eyes and we train our eyes. So the more time you spend out in the bush looking for things, you learn how to spot little things that look slightly out of place. So that's how we train our eyes, by using them every day to look for all the difficult things to spot. Now the other way we find animals, Phelan, is I look for their footprints in the sand, and then I'll follow their footprints, and then sometimes that's how we find animals, by following their footprints. But so far I've found no footprints to follow. Hopefully Ralph has found some to follow for you.
I haven't found any footprints just yet, everybody, but I have found something special to show you. And I just need to jump off the vehicle quickly so that I can grab it. Now, what is that? Let's have a look at that, everyone. That's a big pile of something. What do you think that is? You guys can think about that. And it's got all sorts inside there. If we look at this here, look, it's got some sticks and all sorts. Wow, this is full of branches and sticks and some grass. And it's got some seeds in it over there. Sorry that I throw my fingers in front of the picture. There's some little seeds as well. It's full of all sorts of things, isn't it? There it is. So, really interesting, isn't it? But what do you think it is? What could it be if we break it open a little bit and we look inside? Come on, guys, let's have your guesses. What is this? Should we smell it? We feel it? Ooh, doesn't smell too bad. Smells a bit like a herb garden. You know when your mom grows all those herbs outside? It's got all lovely smells, all different smells. Well, smells a bit like that. Not too bad. I wonder what it is. Come on. What's your guesses, everyone? It's nice and big, isn't it? Look at that. Very big. Wow. And it's been dropped there by something. Where did it come? Is it from a bird? Is it from a snake? What could it be from? Come on. Where's your guesses? Central Elementary, you have hit the nail on the head. You said it's an elephant dung. Yes, look how big that has. Look, it's nearly as big as my head. And that's obviously come from a big male or a big man elephant. He's dropped it here after he's been feeding, walking through the trees and the grasses here. And he's been feeding nicely as he went through. And then he dropped a big poo, hey. But, well, it's not so bad because it's only grass and sticks and everything else. And it's not very well digested, is it? So there's all sorts of little insects that can live inside here. Now, Henry B. School, the reason I'm not wearing gloves if I'm touching this poo from an elephant is because it's a herbivore. So, like horses and donkeys, it's all right if you touch that kind of poo, but you don't want to touch poo from carnivores, like your predators, like cats and dogs, because that has all sorts of bacteria inside that can make you sick. But when it's a herbivore like horses and cows and donkeys and elephants and zebra, it's fine for us to pick it up and look through it and see what is inside, because we often find little insects and actually seeds of plants that the elephant has found or fed on, and then that seed is inside the poo and has a perfect place to grow from. So we're going to carry on and see if we can find some carnivores. But I know my friend James out on foot, he's found you a wonderful antelope.
Yes, we have an antelope. It's the same antelope that was sitting with the wildebeest a little bit earlier, a herd of impala. And you can see perhaps the male there, the one with the horns, he's chasing his girlfriend back to all his other girlfriends. And this particular male has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 girlfriends. I don't even have one girlfriend, and he's got 14 of them. Isn't that unbelievable? Now look where I'm standing. I'm standing up here a little bit like those two birds you first saw with Ralph, the fork-tailed drongo and the grey go-away bird. Now this tree is very interesting. It's one of the most common trees that we find here. It's called a marula tree. But I want you to tell me what you think happened to this tree. Look how it's broken over here. What do you think happened here? Look how big it is. What do you think pushed it over? I'd love to know, so quickly try and tell me, and I will tell you before you tell me that I know what pushed it over. I can see lots of places where beetles have got in here. I'm perhaps looking a little bit thin. Aidan, I had 2 very good meals today. You say, are there vegetables here? Yes, there are vegetables here. We get the same food that you get. We just go to the town down the way. It takes a little bit longer to get to our grocery store than it takes you, but we eat exactly what you do. We eat spinach and carrots and potatoes and gem squashes and patty pans and asparagus and broccoli and cauliflower and aubergines and all manner of other vegetables. So I ate very well today. I had some banana smoothie, believe it or not, for my lunch, along with some nuts. Now, Audrey and David, you're absolutely correct. You say that a storm blew this tree over. Now, a lot of people would have said, I think an elephant pushed it over. And elephants do push over lots of trees, but not ones this big. And I'm going to ask Sebastian to come down here. I'll sit here, and then we can have a look at how it is that a storm managed to push this tree over. If you look in here, you can see that there are a lot of pieces of dung, little bits and pieces here, and so things have been living in here, and you can see therefore that there were holes in this wood. It wasn't solid wood like this here. If this solid wood had been all the way through the tree when this storm came through, it would not have been pushed over. But there were lots and lots and lots of insects and possibly birds nesting in this tree, and that made it very weak, and it filled it with fungus, which rotted away the beautiful wood of the marula tree. Okay, now I told you what didn't do this to the tree. Brent has that very animal right now.
And indeed we do. So we couldn't find any wild dogs, but we have found you the biggest land mammal in the world, the African savanna elephant. A nice little herd of them, all feeding, breaking trees, pushing them down, eating grass, having the best time. There's probably about 15 or so elephants spread out through the bush. We can only see 2 at the moment because it is quite thick. Now, Brandon's asking, why doesn't the elephant digest all the grass it eats? Well, Brandon, it's because they don't have a very good digestive system. And the reason for that is that they are what we would call keystone species. So if they digested everything well, they wouldn't push down so many trees or break so many branches, and there also wouldn't be nearly as much elephant dung, which is an important fertilizer here. So they've evolved not to do that because they help change the bush and keep the bush healthy. my elephants can run, and they can run much faster than a human being, and they can run up to about 50 kilometers an hour, even as fast as 55 if they're in a real hurry. Now, the easiest way to tell an adult boy and girl elephant apart, Abigail, is purely from their size. A big boy is much, much bigger than a big girl, but when they're little, you look at the shape of their head. Now, a female has a sharp angle on its head. I'm trying to see if, there we go, you can see, whereas the male's heads are more rounded. I can't see any boys just yet at the moment, only girls. Oh, the wind is very strong. Sophia, the elephant's tail is not small at all. It is actually very big, and it swings to keep their flies away from their bottoms, so it's the perfect size for its job, and it is quite big. That elephant tail is probably over a meter long, and that's without all the bristles and hairs. I'm just going to try and move a little bit to get you a better view. Okay, so while I try get you a better view, let's send you back to Rolf, who's got a massive herd of impala.
Yes, and look at this. This male impala, he's got lots of females and little youngsters that he needs to look after. He's the only big male in the area, and, well, he's got himself a big group, or a big family that, well, they're all relying on him now to protect them. And it seems like they've all come together like this because they've probably smelt that there's a lion or a leopard nearby. So when they do smell something like that, then they all come together and they make sure that they're all looking in all different directions so that they can see if the predator starts to come closer. But you can see which ones are the girls or the females. They don't have horns. The big male there's got horns, but then in the group you can also see little horns on some of the animals. Those are young males or small boys, like you might find in your classroom. Young boys that are just budding men, and the rest are all the ladies or the females. No horns on them. Now, Alan, those horns are curved because that's special for impala. Some of the animals, the antelope, they don't have curved horns, but they use that to fight with other male impala, and it's just the way that their genetics are. If you know anything about genetics, or it's why you have blue eyes and blonde hair, or brown eyes and brown hair. It's well, it's one of those things that impala have that is special. They have small curved horns, but they're not like your deer antlers that will fall off every year. These stay with the animal for their entire life. So if he breaks one of those horns, it won't grow back. Then he'll be like a unicorn, won't he? So he does need to be careful not to break his horns, but they are very strong, so it's quite difficult to break them. Abigail, impala don't really live much past or anywhere near to 10 years of age. So that it's much like quite a big dog, that they don't grow much older than that. And I think that this impala here, he's probably about 5 or 6 years old, because he's really good looking, isn't he? And he's got himself lots of ladies, and he needs to look after them very well. So they're all together. I wonder where this lion or leopard is. But we're also next to a little dam where there's quite a bit of water. So we're gonna sit here and look and see if we can find anything here next to the water. And I know an animal that loves water, and I think Brent has found one of them.
And we're still with the same group of elephants. And they're moving into some thickets now as they feed. Now, elephants need to eat, well, they eat for almost 20 hours a day, so they don't sleep very much. And when they do sleep, it's for very, very short periods of time. Here we go. They're going to disappear into the thickets. Now Gavin, you've asked a very interesting question about an elephant's foot. And does it have pads on it? Yes, it's got a very thick pad. Unfortunately, we just can't really see any of their feet at the moment. Let's try and see. There we go. You can see the trunk and picking up something to eat. So their feet are very, very interesting because they are shaped very differently. Now I'm going to show you what an elephant's inside of an elephant foot looks like. So it's shaped like this. So it's got 5 toes. It's like this, or 4 toes, and it's shaped like this. And then on the inside is a big spongy piece of cartilage that works as a shock absorber. So they're to be able to carry that massive weight, and then a very big thick pad on the bottom, but with that big shock absorber in the middle, which is very, very cool, and that enables them to get so big and not hurt their feet while they're walking. Okay, well, we're going to leave our elephants to disappear off into these thickets. I'm going to head towards a big water hole, see if I can find some hippopotamus. Okay, we shouldn't be too far before we can get some nice views of some hippo. Maybe the elephants will come join us down there for a drink. In the meantime, let's go to James, who's striding down the road.
One of the things that is so exciting about being at a waterhole on a warm day like today is that things come down to drink. I'm not sure how much is going to come down on a windy day like today, but maybe that will happen a little bit later. Now what we have here is a very interesting tree that the elephants really like to eat, and it is called the round-leafed teak. Now you can see that this round-leafed teak is not very tall. Can you see that? And in some places you can make furniture from this tree, but here, because we have elephants like the ones you've just seen, we don't get them that big. The elephants break them off when they're very small, and if I bring you around this way over here, you can see a particularly amazing example, careful there Sebastian, don't fall there, of what or how thick the trunk of this tree would be. Look over here. Can you see this is exactly the same tree, the round-leaf teak? Look how fat the base of the tree is. So you can imagine it would be a massive tree if it was not for the elephants. Now this is just one small example. We come near them. So we don't see a lot of snakes, but there are a lot of snakes around here. I think for this question, Molly, we're going to go onto the road and I'm going to draw you a picture because it's very difficult to answer otherwise. And I think actually we had some interesting footprints here. Ooh! In fact, okay, there are 2 things here. Let me just quickly show you about Africa first. And then I'm going to explain this amazing scene unfolding here. So here's a picture of Africa. I can't draw very well. I bet all of you can draw better than me. There's a termites there. That's what Africa looks like, okay? South Africa is over here. It's a relatively large country in Africa, but the equator runs all the way along the middle of Africa like that. In fact, it runs a little bit further down than that. Anyway, we won't worry about that. Let's just pretend it runs through there. Okay, this is an enormous area, everybody. So northern Africa in this part here is almost a desert, and it has what we call a Mediterranean climate, which means they get a little bit of rain in the winter time only, and this whole area here is a huge desert. known as the Sahara Desert. Now we're all the way down here in South Africa, which is thousands of miles away from there, thousands of miles. And in South Africa itself, we've got masses of different kinds of climates. And if I look down here, I'll tell you that this is where Cape Town is. That's also got a Mediterranean climate, which means it gets rainfall in winter. We're over here in what we call the Lowveld, where it's very, very hot in the summertime and not very cold in the winter. It's quite nice. Up here, you may have heard of Johannesburg, which is the biggest city in South Africa. There, it's much higher up, like Denver in the United States. It's that high up, and so it gets much colder there, but not nearly as cold as some of the places in the United States. It very seldom gets snow. And so the climate is very different throughout our country of South Africa, but we don't experience anything like they experience all the way thousands of miles up north here, where there's the Sahara Desert, where there's no rain at all, and then these northern parts where you have a place like Morocco or Libya or Egypt over here, where all the pyramids are. You know where the pyramids are? They're about there, in the desert. Okay, so that's the geography. Now come over here and look what we have here. We've got some very clever creatures. They are termites, and they're a special kind of termite called a harvester termite. They don't build those big mounds that you'd expect to see out here in Africa. Those are built by a different kind of termite. These are called harvester termites, and look, they've cut the grass and now they're taking it down into their underground burrow. Isn't that amazing? See how lots of them have gathered the food? Some of them are taking it down and others are just going out to fetch more food. It's so clever. No one's telling them what to do, they just know. Just a beautiful scene. So these are tiny little things that eat a lot of grass. Let's go to some bigger things that eat even.
Here we go. Well, I told you we'd go have a look at some big fat hippos, all lounging about in the water. Now, the hippos spend the day in the water and they come out at night and they go out grazing, so they eat lots of grass and they get sunburnt badly during the day. That's why they tend to prefer to be in the water. Now, a big male hippo's teeth, Sana, are really big. Oh, look at the little baby there. Sometimes the babies will try play and climb up on the mom's back. Now, a big hippo's teeth can be longer than 60 centimeters. Isn't that massive? So longer than my forearm. And a hippo's teeth can chop a person in half. Well, Juliana, I don't think hippos are the most dangerous animal in the world. I think people are. Oh, look there quickly, Vim. But the thing is, what happens is just a very pretty bird. Before I finish talking about the hippos, see the little bee eater? It's where, a little bit to the left, on the where the yellow flowers are. There we go, just above the yellow flowers. There he is. Very pretty little bird called a bee eater that catches bees and then it beats them on a stick before it eats them so they can't sting him. Now, Juliana, hippos are often considered to be one of the most dangerous animals in Africa. When people are on small boats, the hippos can chomp those boats or knock the boats over. Also at night, if you get between a hippo and the water when it's feeling threatened or dangerous, they can be very, very dangerous. But when they're in the water like this, they're not so bad as long as you are not on a little boat near them. Here's Mom and a little one. And it has been wonderful having you guys with us. It's been absolutely absolutely fantastic. I hope you'll join us for another school drive soon, and hopefully next time I can find you a leopard or wild dog. For those of you who are staying with us, we're going to send you across to Ralph.
So now that the school drive is finished, I'd just like to welcome all our regular viewers, and please don't forget to join us on the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and on the YouTube live chat. Send us your questions and your comments because we'd love for you to be involved. Now let's get back to business. I'm heading down towards Twin Dams because I'm trying to catch up on Thandi and Tlalamba, and I've heard that they have moved down into that area. Now, that's not my entire focus. Obviously, I'm going to stop for everything in between, and we're just using that as a sort of end goal. And the reason why I'm following Thandi and Tlalamba is because this week's show, that is going to be my character that I'm going to be focusing on. So I'm obviously just trying to keep up with her movements and the movements of her little cub. So that's the idea, but as we've been saying, it's a very blustery afternoon, and you can see it with a lot of the animals being on edge. Those impala all clumped together. Not necessarily that there's a predator in the direct vicinity, but they do get very nervous. You know, and it's also not that great to walk out on foot, as I'm sure that James has mentioned to you, because you know the wind is swirling. You can't hear any warning signs that you would get from the normally potentially dangerous animals, and the potentially dangerous animals are also all very nervous as well, like the elephants and particularly rhinos. I've found that when I've found rhinos when it's very windy like this, they are extremely nervous, and you know, a big animal like that, when it's very nervous, it can be quite dangerous, because you know, it's almost like that anxious aggressiveness that sort of starts to show through. But nonetheless, we're out on the vehicle, so we're pretty safe. And that's obviously why James is walking the open areas. He's not going to go walking in the thick stuff because of that particular reason. But I'm sure he's explained that to you. So as I say, heading towards Twin Dams. Ooh, there's a little road that I haven't driven, I think. So I'll just take that. Let's keep looking. Oh, okay. So I think I've taken this new road and I don't have much signal. So let's head you on over to the man himself, James.
I'm not sure why I'm the man himself today, but I'm very pleased to be the man himself. Sebastian, do you know why I'm the man himself? No. We were nearly caught, both Sebastian and I, during this last link. This is why I'm standing close to this tree, well, relieving ourselves to find a point on it. I thankfully was done by the time we came across to us. Sorry.
Didn't have time to start.
Yes, and Sebastian didn't have time to start. That is known as an overshare, everybody. We are oversharing with you now. That is how close we feel to you these days. Please continue to ask us your questions, #SafariLive, or on the YouTube chat stream, not about the overshare. You may not ask any questions about that. What we have here is a tangled example of a albizia, or false thorn. And this tangled example of a false thorn, I'm not sure which one it is. It could possibly be the common false thorn, or Albizia harveyi, that has managed to somehow escape the attentions of the elephants and get this big. It would certainly be the biggest one I've ever seen, but I think much more likely is that it's the large fruited false thorn, or Albizia forbesii. And here you can see why it looks like it does, why it is this tangled mass and very untidy tree, which, because they can be extremely tidy and umbrella sort of thorn shaped. And there's the reason. The elephants really enjoy the odd false thorn. Romit, I know that you asked a question. I missed it entirely. I'm going to ask Kirsten to give it to me again. Oh, well, we have quite a lot of diversity here, Romit, but nothing like, and this is going to be an interesting answer to you, the Cape Floral Kingdom. The Cape Floral Kingdom, down in the Cape, unsurprisingly, has far more species than even rainforests. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, because of the Cape Floral Kingdom, I think that we have South Africa is the second or third most species-rich country in the world. I think Brazil is first. So even if you were to go into the rainforests of Central Africa, in general the rule, Romit, is that if you go into the closer to the equator you get, the warmer and wetter it gets, the more the species diversity will be. But there is this very interesting fynbos or Cape Floral Kingdom down in South Africa, which is massively, massively diverse. So I guess other than the Cape Floral Kingdom, it would be the areas closest to the equator, probably the rainforests of the Congo Basin, I imagine. And the drier it gets and the colder it gets in winter, so the diversity will go down. Now, we have had reports of Thandi and Tlalamba coming down towards... You can see her? No? Ah, the stuff I need for that thing that we're going to do when we aren't on air. Thank you, well done. We have to do a little promotion thing after we're off air. We'll remember the spot. There were some tracks, as I said, of Thandi heading towards the pans down here. So we're going to go and have a look there and see what we can come up with while we do this thing off air. Let's go across to Brent Leo Smith.
Welcome back. We are in search of leopards now on the southern or the western boundary of Chitwa. What have we got there? Hello? Hello, vulture. Are you just sitting there for good measure, or is there something below you? I don't think there's anything below. I just think he's found a spot to roost with all the wind around. White-backed vulture. Hello, Tamu, who's 9 years old. Tamu would like to know, are there any birds that fly all day, every day? Almost all day, every day. Some of the swifts and the swallows will stay in the air for days and days and days, all night and all day. But they will have to, normally they'll even mate in the air, but they will, the female will come down, of course, when she's got to lay her eggs. But yes, there are some birds that stay up all day long, and all night long sometimes. Certain of the swifts. And quite a lot of the seabirds as well can stay up in the air for really long periods. Quite a few little birds around here, all fluttering about. Oh, this wind is not good for looking at birds. They all disappear quickly. What do you got there? I didn't even see which one it was. Testicular, maybe. Yes, birds do have taste buds, Lorena. They do. Not quite. I'm trying to remember if they've got more or less than us. I think they might have more taste buds than us. I mean, I have to remember now. Now, elephants. See, as birds have less than we do. But an animal like an elephant has far more taste buds than we do. And strangely enough, certain people have more taste buds than others. So there's no exact amount of taste buds that an individual has, but some people can have more than others. And also it probably explains people's tastes. People with not too many taste buds set it afire with too hot chili. And you can't have all the taste buds in the world if you are doing that with those really, really hot chilies. Ooh, I like some chili, but oof. Genre eats a huge amount of hot stuff. Actually, one of the funniest moments is I was making some chilies. I was cutting habanero and do olive oil and garlic. And Genre saw it and he went, "Oh, that looks good." and he took a huge spoon, and we watched him cry. It was very, very amusing. Okay. So far, can't seem to see any sign of leopards on Chitwa. We're going to keep checking down towards the airstrip now. While we do that, let's go see how Rolf's search for Thandi is going.
Okay, it seems that the roles have switched a little bit between Brent and myself, and that's why I'm speeding up now. It sounds like there might be a little bit of action around where Brent left, and I think they might have spotted the wild dogs again. So we know how fast they move, so I'm going to start to speed up and head in that direction. And that's it, eh? I mean, when we go out and we're looking for animals when we're out here, we're also listening to the radio. We try to catch up on you know, our own tracks and try and find animals ourselves. But obviously we work in tandem with all the lodges in the area, and if there's any high profile sightings, we obviously follow up on that. And we haven't seen wild dogs for so long that it would be wonderful if we could find them. This morning I was racing around trying to catch up with them because James had seen two, but just their tail disappearing off into the thickets. And so he knew which direction they had moved in, but as I said this morning, they could be going in one direction for 5 seconds and turn around and come back straight back where they came from. So it's always difficult with wild dogs, and you almost need a whole team of vehicles to be able to find them, especially when they're on the move. But I think at the moment they might have gone stationary, and that's why everybody's been able to actually catch up with them. But we'll see. I'm not 100% sure that they have actually found them. Maybe they've spotted them just like James did this morning and they were moving through the thick stuff. But nonetheless, they have moved into the area where Thandi was as well. So, well, where they saw some tracks of Thandi. So there hasn't been a viewing of Thandi today. So since her and Klalamba were with that Steenbok kill, she's left that area now. I'm pretty sure it's also as a result of the presence of hyenas. Oh, and as I say, we'll always stop for something along the way that we see. Did he sit? No, he did sit. There he is. Let's just get the gap through the tree there. Have you got him? Okay, Davy. Sort of from these dead branches that are sticking branch. He's just below that. Go down a little bit. There we are. Good spotting, Davy. Well done. Now, everyone, that's a brown hooded kingfisher. One of the resident kingfisher that hang around, and they're insectivorous. The other one that hangs around is the striped kingfisher, and I was hearing them calling the other day. And the woodland kingfisher have all left. The little pygmy ones have all left as well. So these are the one of the residents that have stayed. And I was likening it this morning. I was talking about cuckoos and all the other migratory birds, and kingfishers included. I liken it to, like our local surf break in Port Alfred. Normally we've got the place to ourselves, and there's a handful of surfers, and it's probably between 10 and 15 of us at the most on a Sunday afternoon if it's pumping. And we're out there, we're surfing it up and enjoying ourselves. We can catch whichever wave we like. But then there's certain times of the year when we have traveling surfers pulling in all at the same time, and it very often then doubles. So we have like 20 or 30 surfers in the morning in the water, and then it becomes a bit edgy because we're all fighting over the same resource, the perfect surf break, and it breaks on the same spot. So everybody's fighting over that break, and so it becomes a bit of conflict and pressure for that space and competition. And it's exactly the same with the migratory birds. When they leave, then that pressure is released for exactly the same amount of resources and space and competition. So I think this brown-hooded kingfisher is quite happy that all the migratory kingfishers have all disappeared. He's got the place back to himself. Now, I think I'm going to move along and try and catch up with these madash, or the wild dogs, but it seems Brent has got one of those spiraled horned antelope.
We do. We've got a few spiral horned antelope. Well, only one with horns, but there's a tiny little baby kudu hiding behind the bush. Look at the ears sticking out at us. Isn't that adorable? Hello, little one. Oh, sure. Probably 2 weeks old or so. Very cute little thing. Then comes Mom. They're going to pop out. There we go. They're going to cross the road right in front of us. I just heard something very strange there for a second. It was an impala coughing, it sounded like. It was a very weird sound. One of those ones. There we go. There we go, little one. Off she goes across the road. Because, yes, some animals do get hiccups. I've seen monkeys and baboons with hiccups. So, yes, they do. We seem to have found a little spot down here on the southern side of Chitwa that's quite protected from the wind. And it's very lovely. Lots of animals around as well. A big group of kudu. And there's a juvenile oxpecker on the back as well as an adult. There's a big male at the back as well. Let's have a look and just see him through there. Let me go forward a little bit for you there. Now, Paul is asking, do they all have the same amount of stripes? No, they don't. Some of them have a few more sometimes. There's the big boy. And you can see there those wonderful spiral horns Ralph was talking about. Incredibly impressive antelope, the greater kudu. Oh, oxpecker trying to get at the ticks in his ear. He's not too keen on it. You can see he's trying to whack the oxpecker with its ear. There we go. Get off, you Irish. And he's following after the rest of the females that have moved into the bush behind us. Now, as in a lot of cases, those horns are not there primarily. Oh goodness, I can't speak today. They're not there for defense against predators. They're there for fighting with other males for mating rights. So even though the females don't have horns, their defensive mode is listen very carefully. They also are quick runners, and they can jump incredibly high. So it would be their main two forms of defense, but also being very vigilant and alert. There goes the big boy, following the ladies across the road. Unfortunately, no sign of any cats down here, so we might have to move out of our little wind protected spot and see what else we can find further to the east. Oops, there we go. Okay, well, I'm going to do another quick loop through Chitwa. If I don't find any tracks, I'm going to head back towards Djuma. In the meantime, James is on foot looking for the beloved Thandi.
I have also managed to get myself in amongst a little, well, it was one plant of stinging nettles, and I am now itching horribly. The pain part of the procedure is finished, and now I'm into the itch. Suddenly Rexon went quiet here, and he started looking, because there are birds alarming along this little drainage system. So let's go down and have a look and see if perhaps we can't find something of interest. What a tree there, Sebastian. Nothing. Now you might be able to hear the magpie shrikes calling. There are a couple of starlings going. And Paul, these are all calls that you will hear during the winter because they are not migrant birds. But there are inescapably fewer birds during the winter. We definitely see far fewer birds and hear far fewer birds during the winter months compared with the summer. There's a bird that is flying along the trees here, just moving along, going. Might be a territorial dispute between two flocks of these magpie shrikes, but I think they've seen something they don't like. And I don't think it's us. Let's just stick our heads down here. You can see the magpie shrikes flying there. There they go. Okay. That rasping call they make, that is an alarm. Very nice cave over there, Sebastian, where you might want to give birth if you were a leopard. This is around the area where the tracks were apparently heading. The tracks of Tundi, that is. No, Rex doesn't think it's anything of particular note here. Djuma, I'm just going to have to ask you, how come you are not wearing glasses? Djuma, I am wearing gaiters. Here they are. They're just very cheap gaiters. They're not like the magnificent things that David is wearing here. David has managed to find some spectacular gaiters. He borrowed them from Senzor, who in turn traded them for something from Jared in the engineering department. Those are very fine. They are from the United States. Hello, David. In fact, David's entire outfit is quite spectacular, including the sergeant's stripes. Did we say a sergeant? I think there's a sergeant's stripes. Sergeant... Major.
Maybe.
There we go. Major David Gitu. Major David Gitu of the Sabi Sand Regiment of Wild Earth. Whoops. Okay, let's go up here. The gaiters, for those of you who don't know, are really quite important from my point of view, not so much for ticks, but for the scourge of Tragus berteronianus, which of course is the carrot seed grass. Dreadful, dreadful thing that will get stuck in your socks and you'll never wear them again. The scourge of Tragus berteronianus is not something that must be taken lightly. It is with great excitement that I hand you over to Ralph Kirsten, who is apparently on the trail of some hounds.
Oh, sorry about that, everybody. I didn't hear anything there, but well, we're just coming up here past Treehouse Dam and just having a look because we did hear that there were some wild dogs running around in the area, but at the moment not seeing anything just yet. So we're going to loop around from here back towards Twin Dam. We'll just stop. There's a couple of geese there, not much else, but sometimes you do need to have just a quick scan just to see if anything is around. And well, it's only the geese for now. Those are Egyptian geese. And this isn't Buffelshoek Dam, so don't get worried, anybody, because they haven't lost the little goslings. We did see the little goslings with the Egyptian geese at Buffelshoek, but they were getting blown straight across the pan, and, well, I think they went to go and take cover. And there's a couple of Cape turtle doves. Look at that male. It looks like he's trying to attract that female. Samu, there are some animals that can't swim at all, such as possibly a honey badger. Oh, I'm just turning that radio down. Such as a honey badger. Some of the tortoises can't swim as well, and the leopard tortoise is one of the only tortoises that can swim. Even though they get very big, they can swim. Now, another one that's quite interesting, and Steve found it this morning, is a bushveld rain frog. In fact, they can't swim. And you would think that that is absolutely crazy, because it's a frog, it's an amphibian, amphi and bios, meaning two lives, but they live almost completely in water. However, with the bushveld rain frog, they don't live in water, they live in wet sand, and when they want to go in water or cross a little pond or a river, they will just inflate themselves and their little legs sticking out of the edges, almost like a big fat balloon, and they'll either get blown across the water or they'll get washed by the current, and when they get to the other side, they deflate themselves. So very interesting that, eh? A frog that cannot swim, all he does is float. So, yes, there are some animals that can't swim. There's lots of them, but there's also lots that can. Now, I think we can head on over towards... Oh, another one is hippos. Thanks you, Kirsten, in FC. Hippos actually can't really swim that well. They run on the bottom, and they do a bit of porpoising, but they don't really swim as you would expect, like a frog stroke or what do we call it, breaststroke, or a crawl type movement, or doggy paddle. They don't do anything of that. They literally sink to the bottom and run. And that's why they can move pretty fast when they're in the water. But they're not doing it by swimming. Now, this is an interesting little area. This is where the elephants were that I had this morning. There's lots of signs of them, but they seem to have moved off. So, let's head down towards Twin Dam. And speaking of dam, Brent has still at one as well.
I'm not, unfortunately, by the dam. Then can we just look at the clearing there? I just thought I saw something shooting at high speed across. Okay, let's get over there, because the dogs do like to pop out at Chitwa Dam, and I just saw something running. Well, once we get there, we'll see if there's impala and waterbuck and the like. We've just done a cruise through the back end of Chitwa, looking for any sign of possibly quarantine or kuchava. Unfortunately, no tracks at the moment. Start making our way back towards Djuma, and hoping that the dogs will be on the move and might pop out in front of us. Okay, let's just have a quick look out here. Now, of course, impala will alarm at the big cats, but when they see a wild dog, they just take off. Now, that's how I saw the dog around lunchtime, and literally an impala just shot right out of the bush in front of me, and then I looked, and then I saw one dog disappearing in the other direction. So hopefully we'll have some puppy love this afternoon. In the meantime, let's go see how James's search for the difficult to find Tundi is going.
It's actually not going too badly, everybody. We've got tracks on the road here we think are very fresh, both mother and cub. They've come a long way from where they were yesterday, and they're going on and off the road. Rex is just checking there. I can hear an alarm call here. You get that feeling that you're being watched. Rex? Rex? Rexon. Not there. I'm just going to check down here, everybody, where this bird is alarming. You can see the bird moving. Very, very slowly. You do not want to be charged by Tundi. That will be unpleasant. Result in me becoming afraid. Deeply so. Perfect little drainage system. She spent a lot of time here. Kruger used to spend a lot of time here. Let's just walk down here. We think these tracks are fresh, but it has been very windy, which makes it difficult to tell. So you'll excuse me not looking at you as I try and figure out what's going on here. Now a leopard will become invisible in this long grass. So what we're just looking for is the flash of the white tail walking through the long grass. Perhaps just a little bit of gold and black. Now the chances of Tundi getting that upset with us are small, because Tlalamba, of course, is now able to climb, and so she can get away from any real threat. Let's just look through here. Djuma, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking. I agree. Especially when you can hear the birds alarming and the grass is so long that you cannot really see what's going on. But this leopard is not far. Could easily have spotted us. In fact, most likely to have spotted us. What we don't want to do is give her a fright, so she keeps moving. If she has settled slightly, we want to know about it. Rex is just up top there. Deborah, you say, I told you I get the feeling I'm being watched. It's kudu? You say, I am being watched by 2,500 viewers. You're absolutely correct. There's a kudu. Well done. They're not alarming. They're not alarm calling. So I don't think that they're running from a leopard. I think that's what's frightened the francolins there. They would almost certainly, well, they're definitely alarm call if they saw a leopard. We saw kudus with shidulu this morning, and they definitely alarm called. So I'm going to continue along this way. And we'll stay up above the line of the little riverbed here, just to give us a bit of height advantage over what's going on. Alright, this is very exciting. We're going to concentrate here. Ralphie is not far from here. Those dogs were not far from here. Anything could happen.
And that is very exciting, isn't it? We're just quickly poking in our noses here at Twin Dams just to see if there's anything happening or any signs of life. And then we'll probably make our way over towards where James is, because I'm sure it's going to start getting dark pretty soon. And then, well, then we'll also be able to put the spotlight out and be able to hopefully pick up on Tundi and Tlalamba, or we'll maybe be able to see some of those wild dogs, which would be absolutely fantastic. Now, there's just a couple of impala here next to Twin Dams, and he's doing his whole rutting calls. Let's just maybe try and stop and listen to him. Just get a view in there. They're quite fascinating to watch when they actually do it, because they just go around a little bit more It's like really coming from the throat, firstly from the nose and then from the throat. Just stop here, see him there. If he does, how's that? A little bit further forward, there. Just watch him there. I just want to see if he ruts, and putting that nose up and doing all the specific calls that I'm talking about. There he's broken the end of his one horn off, probably through fighting with other males. There's a couple of times I've actually seen impala getting stuck, but I've seen it more so with springbok actually getting stuck and hooked with their horns and eventually succumbing from probably just through exhaustion. And I've seen that a couple of times in Namibia and in South Africa, in the Kruger, and I've also seen when they're busy fighting and getting stuck, and then a leopard coming in and catching both of them. They couldn't get away. They're both pulling in different directions, and they were literally locked. Rommet, a very good question that. Which of the antelope are only found in southern Africa? I think springbok has to be one of them, because you don't find springbok further north than Angola, I think. The black-faced impala in Namibia is endemic to Namibia and the southern parts of Angola. So there are subspecies of the impala, but that's one that you don't get anywhere else. I'm thinking what else. Probably something like the blue duiker. You don't get anywhere else except in southern Africa as well. That's quite a special antelope, one of the smallest in the world, and you only get that down the sort of east coast of South Africa, in the foresty areas. They like that thicket biome. What else? Probably the common or grand kudu. I don't think that no, we also get those up in the Masai Mara. So we'll get that in East Africa too. There's not a lot of them, but you do get them there, so that's not one. What else? Bushbuck, we also get up there. Nyala, get in East Africa. So there's a couple of subspecies or special ones that don't occur up north, but most of them, you see, because it's not separated by water or anything, Africa, so a lot of the animals are able, or were sort of historically able, to move between the different countries, and so you do find the species spread throughout Africa, albeit now some of the areas having more subspecies in the different countries. And now we've split them up where they can't actually get to each other because of a lot of fences and boundaries that we've put between countries, and veterinary fences to stop diseases being spread between domestic cattle and wildlife. So it's pretty much stopped all the migratory patterns and routes that historically would have been there. Okay, I think I'm going to leave this one half horn impala and head towards James, because I think there's lots of action hitching up over there, and let's head on over to him and see how it's going.
Well, we haven't moved far from where you last saw us. I've come and I've looked through the drainage. Nothing here. I didn't think there would be, because those kudu did not alarm call. Rexon managed to find no further tracks. He did a whole loop round on the road. So let's go back up to where the last tracks were and see if we can't figure out what's going on. Of course, it's at this stage that you would normally now completely relax, start wandering like this, and she'll explode to come out. Big spider here. Hello, Lily, age 7. It seems to me that it's been a long time since we've heard from you. It's wonderful to have you back with us. And you want to know if the big cats will run away from us before they'll run towards us. Yes, they definitely will, Lily. That's the big thing. We don't want to give them a fright. We want to be careful that we respect them and don't give them a fright. Now, you're looking at a massive golden orbweb spider there. But I'm not going to stop and talk about it. Let's just keep going. We've just got to get Seb out from underneath the web here. There you go. If you duck, yeah, keep going, and you're up. There we go. I'm amazed we didn't lose signal there. We might have. Okay, so we're going to go back up onto the road, and we can see what we can find. It's fantastic. Anyway, really it's pretty eerie walking through here with all of this grass blowing, as Sebastian says. Tucker, on Sunday I went to see Steph, who I'm sure you remember. Steph is one of our guides, and he was at home with his family, and out of their roof, yes, on Saturday, a squirrel fell. And Tucker, they've kept that squirrel as a pet just until it's healthy enough to leave. So what they do is they'll keep the squirrel in the house, they'll give it food, but eventually the squirrel, when it grows up, will leave, and it does this of its own accord. So your mother is not incorrect when she says we shouldn't keep squirrels as pets, because of course we don't want to keep wild animals in captivity. But in this particular case with the squirrel, you'll probably find that once it gets big enough, if you don't put it in a cage, it will probably just leave of its own accord. So I don't think it's too bad to have a squirrel as a friend. Okay, there is Rexon. Let's go and ask him what he's seen. So the leopards have moved either off that way or up that way, and I wonder if they haven't gone towards Treehouse Dam, which is where Ralph was a little bit earlier. And if there are dogs around, well, then those dogs are going to put the cats up the tree. I'm going to have a small conference with Rex. While I do that, let's go and find out if Leo Smith is still on Chitwa.
I am not. I'm on Djuma. I'm coming to see what we can find here. It's going quite slowly, especially in this wind, looking for any sign of anything really. I tried to go back to that Ellie herd, but they went into Little Gowrie. So I think I've got a feeling we're going to find something on Djuma today. That's what I think. We haven't seen any tracks just yet. We actually haven't seen. We saw some wild dog tracks, but they weren't fresh. They were from much earlier today. I think from around lunchtime when I saw the one. Now there's another pack of wild dogs up in the north, and I'm waiting to hear which way they get moving. Oh, and it's getting chilly now. Lots of impala all over the place. Oh, looking a little bit nervous in the wind. Oh, these tracks are very fresh because they're on top of mine, and they are leopard tracks. And they look like Dundees. These are on top of where I drove. Did I drive here, Bim? No, I didn't. I don't think we drove here, but maybe Rolf did. Actually, I know Aubrey did. Okay. These tracks are fresh. Fresh. Especially in the wind, because they haven't been sort of blown over and the edges haven't been lost. Let me call Rex on the radio. I'm pretty sure it's the same set of tracks that they're following. Come on, there we go. Rex, do you copy? I'm just trying to get hold of Rexon. It's very fresh tracks, very exciting. Rex, do you copy? Rexy, those Nkonzo you've got, whereabouts are they? You see here, she goes in. She's still here. And there's another track coming back and going that way. Okay, interesting. Okay, and there's more tracks here. I'm gonna send you across to Rolf while I chat to James and Rex.
Yes, everybody. Well, I'm just looking for a little way through here because we did find some tracks of Thandi, as I think Brent has and James have as well, but it seemed like I've got a little bit ahead of the other guys, and it looks like they've headed down into the Mlawati. I hope we don't lose signal. It is possible. Let me take low range as we go underneath this wonderful jackalberry here. Oh, look at that. We've got a lovely steep descent here, and just going to see if she's possibly moved along in the riverbed here, because she's definitely headed down into here, but for all cases and purposes she might have just carried on going through there on the other side. But it's worth having a look in the riverbed itself, so we will just try and see if she's maybe just rested up in here. You know, it makes sense if it's quite windy like this, you get down nicely into a little riverbed like this, and it's quite out of the wind. So you very often find rhino doing something similar as well. Okay, it seems all three of us are looking for Thandi and Hlalamba. Let's go to James and see if he's got any other clues.
I have no clues, but what I do have here is a very interesting kind of development that I wasn't expecting to find here. We're at the old hyena den just off Philemon's cut line, which is about 500 meters from the southern boundary. And what we have here is a great spattering of hippo dung. Now, there is no water anywhere near us here, and there is Treehouse Dam, which is another sort of 500 meters, 400 meters or so, quarter of a mile away. Just gives you an idea of how far they walk, the hippo. And I mean, there hasn't been a hippo in Treehouse Dam for a little while, but perhaps this is where he used to come and while away his lonely evenings, and evidence of his loneliness is found here, because it is only the dung of one hippopotamus. Shame. Maybe he found friends since his departure from Treehouse Dam. He could easily, of course, be the world's most boring hippo that now lives in Buffelshoek Dam. Oh, and apparently hippopotamus was seen on the Djuma Dam cam the other night, but I think this is almost fossilized. This is really very old. This would have been quite good for our little trick earlier. Yeah, it's a good vintage. Herbivore dung, especially elephant dung, but most herbivore dung, if you open it up like that after it's dried, is actually delicious. Smells very herby. Wonderful. Okay, let's go across to Ralph. He has got something, I'm trying to think of something clever to say. I can't. Just go to him.
Thanks, James. Well, you're not feeling too clever. Well, this guy and this beautiful bull, pretty. What you don't have in brains, you can make up for in looks. But I don't know if James has got either. I know he's very clever, but, well, I don't know. We'd have to debate that, Darby. Well, this Nyala bull, nice and close to us. He's just carried on feeding here. It looks like he's eating a little bit of the jackalberry saplings, or what do you call them, seedlings. Getting a bit bigger than that. Now he's having a go at it, but probably wiping some of his glands on it there. Paula, a set of horns like that probably weighs in the region of... It can be quite... And with the skull as well, so maybe a little bit less than that, but you see how he has got beautiful ivory the end of his horns. Now he's getting quite worried there over to the right there somewhere. I wonder if there's a leopard or something walking in there. Maybe Tundi is around, but he is very pretty indeed. Okay, the gremlins are attacking because we're down here in the riverbed, so we need to keep moving over to Brent, see how it's going there.
Well, we are still just checking around the area where James and Rex lost the tracks, or last had the tracks. I'm sure they're going to find them again. So we're just doing a little loop around them, giving them a hand, seeing if we get any luck. Now, indeed they do, Matt. Predators do like a good windy day like this to hunt, so they are more active. It's cooler. The prey can be surprised more easily. So yes, they do tend to hunt a bit more on a day like today. Oh, we've got no trucks coming out here, so we're going to loop again and keep looping. I think maybe we'll go check around Elephant Carcass Road, see if there's anything there. And up towards Treehouse Dam. So fingers crossed that, well, either Tundi or the wild dogs are around. Now, while we are moving through the bush here, I think it's time to put you to the test. And what are we going to quiz you on today? Ah, I've got an idea. We'll quiz you on game reserves in Africa. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a relatively easy one. I want to know what country Djuma National Park is in. There you go, there's the first one for you. Hashtag Safari Live if you know what country Djuma National Park is in, and no cheating with the Google machine now. Who can tell me what country Djuma National Park is in? Now that's an easy one to start. They're going to get tougher. Okay. Oh, hold on. Bouncy bounce coming. Dominique, yes, it is in Africa, but I would like to know which particular country in Africa, Dominique. St. Mark, it is not in Zambia. It is not in Zambia. Oh dear, I thought this was an easy one. Well done to Alan Girl and Alistair, you guys are spot on. It is indeed in Chad, famous for its elephants, as well as a huge variety of other animals. And those elephants have been brought back from the brink. I thought I heard a kudu bark. Did you hear that, Vim? This wind makes life so difficult. I could have sworn I heard a bar. Let's go forward a little bit. Oh, yeah, it is indeed. It is famous for its elephants, among other things, and also incredibly great bird watching. Oh, it's so hard with this wind. The wind is really howling now. Now, you've got to be very careful when you're on foot in this wind, because it does make life a little bit more difficult when you can't hear everything around you. Let's go see how James is doing.
Wait a bit. Red oat grass. Right, we have a very special grass here that will be, of course, be familiar to David. It is the red oat grass, as it's called. There you are, David. That's to make you feel like you're at home.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And that, of course, grows all over the Masai Mara, known as red oat grass there, and just plain red grass here. It doesn't grow in anything like the profusion it does there in the Mara. Well, David and I are actually talking about this ourselves, Djuma. Trees and plants found in the Masai Mara and Djuma are not many. We get, of course, the two Balanites species. We get a Balanite species here. It's a different one from the one down in the Mara. A couple of the acacia species, similar but not the same. There is a Euclea species there. You get the magic worry? Yes, magic worry is a good one. Yeah, so magic worry we'd expect to find there. Now, this grass, the red oat grass, as I've explained to many people before, is almost useless in this current form. And it's because it has turned to seed. It has turned to it has put all the energy into making the seeds. And it means that most of it is straw and fairly useful only for thatching. And it's why, at the end of a growth season, a fire through the thermida or through the red grass is often the only way to kind of get the straw away so that it starts to produce lots of these leaves down at the base again. So the greatest grazing grass in Africa, if you find this in your little patch of land, you know that you have got very nice grazing. Now, on Tundi, the note of Tundi, Rex is down there. He is looking for tracks. I can hear Franklin alarm calling. We're going to go and look, but while we do that, a mystery awaits you with Ralph.
Yes, and it's a very big mystery indeed. But these elephants, we've come up along the Mlwati and we've popped out right near to the Vuyatela Dam. But we're down in a road I've never come along. It's just basically continuing along the river bed. So we did a bit of 4x4ing and we found these elephants in a bit of a secret spot here. It's not really a very well used track at all, and it seems they're all quite active. They're all feeding, a bit of pushing and shoving between them. There's a bit of a young male around as well, and then we're just pushing him around too. Let's see, maybe one of these will try to climb up the bank there. Always nice to watch elephants, especially when they're in a different area like this. They're feeding there. I think that's a bit of a young jackalberry as well. Always nice to watch elephants, eh? Everybody's happy about that. Well, just as I am too. Look at that one just leaning there. Let's see. Oh, we could have nearly seen straight into its eyeball. There's a bit of playful nature coming out again. Then they very often like to sleep on an embankment like that. That's a very nice spot for them to rest, because they're not really comfortable lying straight on their side or on flat ground, because they do get their bones are so heavy. It's a bit like a whale. Eventually they start sort of crushing themselves. They can't really breathe that well. Well, these two are having a whale of a time. We should say an elephant of a time. It's sad that our Laura Moore, elephants do eat soil. It's called geophagia, and they'll often go to areas, especially where there's some termite mounds or there's a sodic site where there's a lot of mineral salts in the soil. And they'll push their tusks into the ground, loosen up that soft soil. Sometimes it's quite hard, it just needs a bit of softening up with the tusks. So they'll push their tusks into the ground, then possibly even stand on it, loosen it up a bit more, and then they'll put it into their mouth and feed on it. And these two are having a proper wrestling match here. Probably two young males as well. I think that's why they were the sort of greater herd was a little bit edgy, because they can be when these sort of teenagers are having a bit of wrestling matches and so on. Samu, who's 9, thank you for your question. I haven't really seen elephants that go, if I can say, cuckoo or mad. Not completely, but sometimes when it gets very hot, or different times of the year, they can have different levels of hormones in their body. They can get a little bit angry with each other. They can also get quite angry at us. So I think if you mean that kind of mad, yes, they can get very mad. In different areas, they might have the unfortunate chance of being shot at by some poachers, and then they can get very mad with humans. The next ones that they see, they'll want to kill them because they've been shot at and attempted, their life been attempted on. So yes, there can be times when they'll go mad, but I haven't seen an elephant that is doing things completely crazy, if I can say. Just more so mad in the sense of being angry. Lots of times, yes. They can be mad with each other, they can be mad with us. Caitlin, thank you for your question. Elephant populations are controlled naturally in the wild, normally through disease. You do get some diseases that the elephants can get, and as well they also can die of thirst if there's not enough water. Oh, look at these two. They're really having a go. There's a little bit of calling there as well. Let's see. Always nice, eh? A little bit of a trumpet. And they're really getting it going here. See, that's the reason I'm not moving, because I don't want to disturb this little wrestling match. And so, Caitlin, it's mostly down to them not having enough water or not having enough food, and then they'll lose condition and they can die that way. Other ways, when there's not enough food or water, they'll also start fighting a lot between each other, and they can kill each other too. So it will sometimes result from the elephants controlling themselves. But once the resources drop, then elephants need to drink a lot of water every single day, and they also need to eat a lot every single day. So they will lose condition quite quickly if there's not enough food and water, and they can die from their organs starting to shut down when there's not enough food and water. That is one of the biggest controlling factors with elephants. Now, I'm just going to move forward a little bit because we can get a nice view on these two. And I'm just going to pop forward a little bit. Let's just see if they just relax with us here. Brittany, there are some small things that elephants won't eat. Such as those euphorbia that I was speaking of earlier with the toxic latex. It's like the desert elephants in Namibia. In the desert there's a lot of different euphorbias, and they don't even go anywhere near it. And there's also something that the local villagers do, is they plant chilies around their vegetable gardens, and it actually stops the elephants from going there because they have such sensitive smell that they can smell that chilies, and it obviously burns their nose, so they don't go anywhere near that. So I would say chilies is another plant that they won't eat. But generally in the wild, anything that's quite strong smelling or tasting or poisonous, they won't eat that at all, because they have a very strong sense of smell, and they're quite sensitive to those toxins, especially the toxic latexes in the euphorbia plants. And tamboti, they also won't push over tambotis. They don't eat tamboti, so they leave those alone here. I've never seen an elephant eating tamboti. That's more so the porcupines and sometimes oryx as well. The odd kudu might have a little nibble on a tamboti, but they've obviously got an enzyme in the stomach that neutralizes the toxin, which the elephants don't have. Now it's eating a bit of grass. You see, elephants are mixed feeders, hey? They don't just eat branches and leaves. They also do eat a lot of grass, especially like we see in the Masai Mara, where they actually stay in the wetlands, in the marshes, and all they eat there is grass. So a very sloppy nature to their dung there as well. Lots of water in their diet and mostly grass. Oh, have you just noticed that we're here, little one? Are you going to come and show us how big you are? No, just going to play with a little piece of vine and throw it over his head. And sometimes elephants, when they are trying to intimidate you, especially when they're next to you, or if they're a young male like this little guy, they'll often take some grass and sticks and things and put it on the top of their head. I think it's trying to make themselves look a bit bigger. You know, if you're not really that confident in yourself, well, you put a very big hat on and makes you look a lot bigger and intimidating. Well, and that's what I think they think anyway. But if you're a big bull and you're big anyway, you don't need to put anything on your head to make yourself look bigger. You're big enough. Very nice sighting this, eh? It's lovely spending time with elephants. Especially, look at that, you can see straight into his ear. And as relaxed as they are, it just makes you feel pretty much the same, doesn't it? Very soft eyes the elephants have, with very elegant eyelashes when you get to see it up close. And there's a very distinct colour to their eye as well. I love looking at close-ups of elephants' eyes. It's like the all-seeing eye of an elephant. Very knowledgeable, I feel, when you look into an elephant's eyes. Except for this youngster, he's still got lots to learn. There's ear flaps, not too many nicks and cuts on them just yet, as you'd find in an old bull. But I'm always fascinated to look into an elephant's ear there as well. Oh, he's got a little hole in his ear, straight hole there, almost like a gunshot. But it's not a gunshot, I'm just saying that. It's the same hole. Yeah, it's like a piercing. I wonder if he walked into a thorn or something like that and it pierced his ear there. You see that? Just one, but it's surprising it didn't rip it. You see, that's what often happens. It gets pierced, and then they keep walking. Oh, he spotted another one to go and chase. Either that or he's been left behind by the herd and he's just realized it. He's quite a young one. The other elephant bull, the young one, has remained here just near to us, feeding there in the thickets. But that, oh no, here he's popping out just in front of us. I think he has realized that that the herd has disappeared, and that's quite often the young bulls. They all of a sudden realize that mommy and the herd has moved off, and they get a quick surprise. Now, where's mommy? Look at him. He's trying to work it out. Okay, I think we're going to head up to Vuyotela Dam. Maybe they're having a drink while we relocate. Let's head on over to James. Well, I think he's walking in the long stuff.
Well, we've just come across some flowers, and I thought it would be holden on me to tell you that I told you a lie the other day. I'm sorry for telling you a lie. These flowers are not the ones I told you a lie about. These flowers are, in fact, annuals. They're exotic annuals from Peru, no less, like Paddington Bear. They are Zinnia peruviana, or the black-eyed Susan. The flower I told you a lie about is over here. Where is it? I walked past it. Past it I walked. And my mistake was pointed out to me inevitably by Judy H. when I said that Hibiscus micrantha, which is one of my favourite flowers, I'm sure I walked past one here, I said that it was an annual as well. I thought it died during the winter months, but it doesn't. It is in fact a short-lived perennial plant. The story is now meaningless because I can't find the actual flower I was going to tell you about. For that I apologise profusely. I seem to be doing a lot of that of late. Anyway, let's go and have a look at this purple plant here. There we are. Now, this is a plant that is an indicator of slightly wet, disturbed areas. And that's what we have here, and that's why we've got lots of herbs which produce beautiful flowers and not much in the way of grass, and it's probably because we're quite close to a road. That's not very nice. Okay, let me just give you an update on what's going on with the... I just heard a comment from Paula that said she loves the randomness of flowers. I thought she was going to say the randomness of James's presenting, but I'm glad she didn't say that. Thank you very much for that, Paula. Let me just give you an update on the tracks that we had. They went into where you and I were looking over there. We don't know where they've gone from there. Rex is now, he's got to be in his bonnet. He's gone around the corner to see if he can find them again. It's getting dark now, so we're going to start making our way back towards home, I'm afraid. But who knows, she might pop out during the night, and one of the chaps at the spotlight might be able to see her. That would be very exciting indeed. Now, also indicative of disturbed areas, and often on roadsides, is one of the most beautiful grasses that you get here, and this thing often flowers, or in fact it normally flowers at this time of year, just before we go into winter, and it is the Natal red top, or Melanus nerviglumus. Absolutely hopeless for grazing, but isn't it just beautiful? It is the colour of sort of blood almost in some of them. Fantastic. A little earlier we showed you the Thermida triander, the red grass, and Leslie, that's exactly the kind of flower or grass that would need fire to germinate. Not many of the trees here actually die with fire, and there's a great misconception that fire will help with bush clearing, that it'll take away thick bush. It won't. Most of the trees here, if they will die on top, you need very hot fire to kill them on top, but they'll just coppice from the bottom again, and instead of having large tall trees, you just have a whole lot of thick scrubby stuff if you burn too often. So not many of the trees need fire in order to germinate, but there are quite a few grass species, and the red grass is the most obvious one. That's not to say that it won't germinate without fire, but it does need fire just to kind and get the dry, moribund stuff off the top. It's all right, huh? I'll manage. Thank you very much, Sebastian. My knees are not what they once were. Right, speaking of red, I believe Brent has taken out his tablecloth and is now wearing it.
James, it is a shuka. You know this, it is not a tablecloth. And don't fall over on those wonky old knees of yours. We've made our way towards the western sections, and we're just going very slowly looking for sign of anything. This cold, windy weather makes game viewing really difficult. So while we keep searching, we're going to continue to play the game reserve game. Now, who can tell me what is the oldest proclaimed nature reserve in Africa, and what year was it proclaimed? Who can tell me what is the oldest proclaimed nature reserve in Africa and what year it was proclaimed? Hashtag Furry Live if you know the answer. Oh, it's so chilly.